monster.
I'm your number one fan.
Now clear your minds. Notice what scares you. It has from the very beginning.
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
Just been informed that zombies have entered the building. They're at the door. They're coming in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. I'm your host, as always, Corey, and alongside me is my good pal, Tony. What's going on, Tony?
What's going on, Corey? What's going on, Daniel?
What's happening, Daniel? Hey, and Daniel's with us tonight as well. What's going on, Daniel?
What's up?
So we are back with another episode, and this is the start of our July episodes of the slasher months, the slasher series. So first and foremost, how do you guys think that this is going?
Dude, we're a month in, and I'm still fucking stoked, man. I'm loving it.
Loving it. Amazing.
Yeah, it's been a blast so far.
Yeah, looking back, I was kind of upset with myself for not watching more slashers than I did, but I watched a good bit last month. This month, I'm gonna try to double that. So there's a bunch of really good slashers on, well, interesting looking slashers on Tubi that I'm looking to explore. So
that's where they get to.
Yeah. Like the cover looks awesome, and then you're halfway through, you're like, "Ew." I already have one in mind I'm gonna watch. It's on Tubi now. I don't want to say what it is because I might save it for the roulette, but we'll see. So
interesting. Cool. Well, so if you're joining us, we are going to be covering the Prowler from 1981. However, if you haven't seen it, I suggest you stop right here and you go check it out before you get back with us, because there will be spoilers. But before we jump into that, Daniel, do you want to do some housekeeping?
Yes, I do. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. If you are listening to us or watching us on YouTube, we greatly appreciate that. Be sure to like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends to subscribe. That would be awesome. Also, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, pretty much wherever you can find podcasts. We're there. Leave a review. That would help push the podcast. That would be awesome. We have a Facebook group. Join the Facebook group. Just go to the search bar, type in the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. It is a closed group. Ask nicely. We'll let you in. I'll let you in. Tony might sneak up on you while you're in the shower and stab you.
That's where I do my killing.
Yeah, I mean, that's where they're vulnerable. You got to catch them when they're washing their hair. They can't, We do have a Twitter, Monster_Corner. Be sure to follow us there. Midnight Monster 20 on TikTok, and we do have an email, of course. If you want to remain anonymous and hit us up, that'd be awesome too. Big shout out to everyone who's been following us on the socials and following us on YouTube, especially. We're getting a lot of views on some of our videos, especially the wrong turn video. The views are really up there, and we promise it's not artificial. We're not doing that. It's just guys checking out our views. So guys and gals, we appreciate that. We do have some new listeners. You guys rock. And we do have some people that have, just from conversations with me and about the podcast, or maybe listening to the podcast, have regained a general interest in not only movies, but horror movies and horror movies on Tubi. So shout out to our buddy David Prince. He's been knocking out a bunch of horror movies on Tubi. He calls me and texts me every now and then. He's like, "Hey man, I need some recommendations. What you got?" And I actually went over there today. I was in the area, swung by, and I was like, "Hey, there's a ton of good movies on Tubi." So I was showing him some. So that's exciting. It's exciting when you get people involved, and people start watching the same movies you are, and it sparks up conversation. So it's always a good time. But yeah, follow us on any of those outlets. That would be awesome. And yeah, you guys rock. Thanks for the support.
Yes,
definitely. Yeah, can't say it enough. We appreciate that. But yeah, so this film is actually on Tubi. But yeah, so you can actually go and visit Tubi there, and of course we're not paid by them or sponsored by them by no means. But we just like to plug them because it's a good way to watch films. There's tons of films, and it seems like the films that we're watching are on there, so that's awesome. So you guys can watch along with what we're watching and follow along with the reviews. But with that, guys, first thoughts here.
First thoughts
Okay. First thoughts on the opening scene.
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it. The period, well, the stock footage, first of all, with the Queen Mary is really cool. And then the voiceover that's done, like the old timey like war voiceover that they do is really, really well done. And it just gets you, because let's be honest, man, not too many horror films or slasher films in general they don't do that. So the fact that they did do it is really refreshing, and it's something cool. I love how they incorporated that into the story, because basically what we're following is a veteran that has PTSD essentially, and it incorporates that so well when you have that opening. But I love it. I dig it. It's really cool, especially on the lower budget side, because I know this was not a higher budget. So the fact that they were able to do that, incorporate all that, the costumes, the cars. I mean, this takes place in 1945. So it's pretty impressive how they were able to get it as close to period correct as they could. It's absolutely amazing that they were able to do that. I dig it.
Okay, so the like current setting of the movie actually takes place during the 40s too, because I thought it was like one of those deals where it kind of flashed forward a bit.
It does, yeah. Because it jumped 30 years, if I'm not mistaken. And after the initial double homicide. So it jumps forward, because they kind of do that same thing that they do, which they do in a lot of slasher films from this time period, where there's an event that happens and they shut down, like this town shuts down a party for such and such years, and obviously, eventually they're like, okay, we need to open this back up and do this again. And as soon as they open it back up, that's when the killing starts. So
kind of like a My Bloody Valentine type deal.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So that's I'm with you, Tony. I think the period stuff, with the from 1945, the way people are dancing, the band, everything about this is just so cool. Even like down to, the way that the people were dressed and again with the cars and stuff. I found it to be very cool. And actually that the shot where the guy and the girl kind of make their way off in that little car, and then they pull up like beside that pond and stuff, and you get like that close up of that car and stuff. It's like, wow, that's really nice shot, And even just because I'm a car fan, I like that car, old cars like that. So
yeah,
I thought that was just a really cool shot and everything. And then of course the way that whole murder scene went down, and I thought that was pretty interesting too.
It is. Yeah. It is. It's crazy that that it started with the Dear John, and that's what kind of started the ball rolling.
I gotta be honest. When I first turned the movie on, I had to go back and make sure I was watching the right movie, because I was kind of confused at first. I was like, "This is an interesting, kind of an intro that I've never seen before." Apologize to you guys and to all the fans listening if you can hear whining in the background. That's just my dog being an asshole. Just ignore him. But yeah, to confirm what you're saying, Tony, this movie was shot on $1 million budget, which even for its time was kind of low, because when you think about like Halloween was shot with $3 million. So yeah, this was a lower budget. But it did come out in 1981. I mean, they do consider that the golden year for slashers.
Definitely.
So, and it released on the 9th of October, so just in time for Halloween. So
yeah,
that's kind of cool.
Very cool.
Yeah. So what's your first thoughts when you see the killer?
Oh man, the killer! I tell you, man. You know what? My three rules the 3 rules that we have for slasher films in general, you have to have a cool looking killer. With the with the fatigues and everything, the killer looks badass, man. And again, I feel like we've preferenced this on a couple of our episodes already. There's a montage of him getting ready. Not a montage, but there's scenes where he's getting ready. And I dig the hell out of that. I love that. I'll keep, prefacing that. I love that shit. So it's so cool to see, down to the gear that he's wearing, to his weapons that he has. He's got multiple weapons at his disposal, all of which are cool. The bayonet's badass. Of course, the pitchfork, that goes without saying. Such a wicked ass weapon, man. And I dig his look, man. He looks so fucking creepy, especially with the scenes where he's stalking. I mean, it's really effective.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I do have my issues with the movie, which we'll cover today. I've shared them with you a little bit before, but I will say, that's one thing that I saw in some of the reviews I was reading that people complained about was the look of the killer. I didn't have no problem with the look of the killer. I thought he looked awesome. Thought he looked very intimidating, especially during, the scenes that I did really enjoy where he was, like the scene where he's chasing the lady through the hallway. He's just, this giant soldier, chasing this girl. It's scary. It's intimidating.
It is.
And I think it's a bit unique too. It's something we don't really see a whole lot. Like I can't recall another movie where there's like an ex-soldier gone mad, maybe other than like Uncle Sam. Does that movie really count?
Well, especially for the time, you didn't see that very often, and that's what I think this movie stands out in the slashers genre. Is it has a lot of unique things going on with the look of the killer, the killer's backstory, a lot of that, and also his the atmosphere in this movie. I know we're probably going to get into it. The way it's shot. I know Joseph Zito directed this movie, and he's gone on to direct my personal favorite, Friday the 13th, Part 4. So with me, this dude knocks out slasher films, man. He kills it. He knows how to shoot them. He knows what to do. A lot of the scenes were shot around, and I preferences when I looked it up and I was kind of doing my research. A lot of scenes in this film were shot around the special effects, because we're going to get into the special effects and how mind-blowing they are, because obviously Tom Savini did them. He did all the special effects, which he just came off of Maniac to do the effects for the Prowler. So this just goes to show you, this was deep into his, he was so busy around this time. The man was insanely busy. Hopping off set after set, just jumping on, working on this, and then right after done wrapping up, he went to this movie and worked on the effects for that. I mean, he was constantly doing that around this time. He was in such high demand.
Yeah, because he did like The Burning and all that stuff right around the same time, didn't he? Yeah,
he did.
And then Friday the 13th, yeah.
Maniac. I mean, dude, he was just so busy around this time.
Guy was a machine.
He was, man.
I had the privilege of showing David the canoe scene in The Burning today.
One of my favorite scenes.
Just like, I remember the day you were at my house and you were telling me about it, and you pulled it up on YouTube to show me, and it brought me great joy. So now I share that joy with people. It's like Christmas.
It really is.
You don't need a race car, Jimmy. Here, let me show you this YouTube video. And I show people that scene, and it brings joy to their life, and that's all I want to do.
Yeah. I'm just giving back.
There you go.
So, great scene. Great effects. The one where he stabs the guy down in the throat.
That's one of my favorite kills ever. One of my favorite kills of all time.
That's like where he lops off the dude's fingertips.
The blood sprays all on his face. Yeah. I love the fact that my favorite part about the whole scene is the fact when they get close enough to the canoe, you can tell there's no one in the canoe. And then out of nowhere, he jumps up and they all die. Classic.
It's hilarious, man.
Yeah. Speaking of Tom Savini, according to IMDb, he considers this to be his best work. which I thought was pretty interesting.
You know, and I want to bring up this fact, okay, that this is he probably connects with this film a little bit more so than others because
He's a veteran. Yeah.
He's a veteran, exactly, and he probably went to real heart with this one.
I agree.
This is probably why it's his favorite. And you know, if you ever watch any of like his interviews and stuff, and even just talk with him, he'll tell you that he's mainly inspired by the stuff he saw over in Vietnam. You know, so.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Mm. You know, there's something to that because shut up, Shane. There's something to that because you know it's crazy because you know you look at case studies on a lot of like serial killers. And what do you find? Like a lot of them have been tortured in some kind of way through like images of Vietnam, or you know, like Arthur Shawcross was a victim of it. You had Richard Ramirez was a victim of it, you know, as a kid seeing photos of Vietnam, and so that really messed with him. And you know, luckily Tom Savini didn't turn out to be a serial killer, but you know, it was just a terrible war, and a lot of heinous stuff happened. So, I mean, if you're going to be inspired by something in this field, I mean, that's, you know, I'm not saying that's a good thing to be inspired by, but you know, it surely worked. You know, he is a master of his craft, so
he definitely has a different take on it than a lot of other special effects artists at the time. Like they didn't see it firsthand, so he kind of had a little notch in his belt where he's like, okay, well, I've seen this stuff, I know what I'm doing. You know, he a lot of times films called him in just to be a consultant on the special effects. Like they didn't even have him actually get his hands dirty and do the effects. They just wanted him to consult with the project and everything. So that just goes to show you his influence and where he was at that time. It's incredible. But his special effects work in this, I have to agree. The kills are so gnarly, and what I love about the Prowler, this is one of my favorite things about the movie. When they shoot the kill scenes, when the kill scenes are done, they linger on the kill scenes. It's not a quick kill, boom, over and done with. This is before the MPAA would have gotten a hold of it and said, no, you need to cut this down. You need to. In this movie, the kills are not cut down. They linger, and they're effectively brutal because of that. And that's what I love about this movie so much, is that they didn't cut away. They didn't shy away from the kills. They let you see everything. I can appreciate it.
And I think that might be one of my biggest complaints, or one of my biggest complaints about the movie, was how some of the kills were a little too realistic. Now that we think about it, like, you know, the killer, like the one where he grabs a woman from the bushes, you know, like that was something you'd see maybe a soldier would do. So it kind of, looking back, it made more sense, you know. But I was really looking for like more artistic, more unique kills, kind of like what you saw in the shower, you know. The shower scene in that movie was like,
it's incredible.
I love that scene. Like it was a fantastic kill. It was a very like artistic approach to it. It was very slow, methodical, and it's almost like he was killing them and posing them at the same time, kind of deal, you know?
Yeah.
Like we see in a lot of movies where the killers prop their victims up. We saw it in Terrifier. We saw it in like Friday the 13th. We see that. So I was really happy with that one. And the other, like, I guess I had a high expectation for the kills going from there, because the other kills just didn't seem quite as good. But they were more down to earth. And I guess looking back, maybe that's a harsh critical approach on my end, that maybe I should, you know, look back and maybe change my mind, you know, or give it a second overlook, because, you know, maybe it wasn't so bad that they kept it more down to earth, because, you know, you kind of want to have that, unless the movie, because this movie was more of a serious tone, right? Like the silly slashers are the one, like Intruder, like you're gonna have ridiculous, over the top kills in that movie because it was a silly slasher. Where this one, I think they kept it safe, kept it more down to earth, because they didn't want to like risk making the movie look too goofy.
It didn't feel, there was no, based on the tone, there's no comedic. I mean, there's some scenes where, you know, they play off as you know, jokey, but the tone itself of the entire film is very serious, because they take the subject matter. It seems like they take the subject matter of a war veteran with PTSD very seriously. Yeah, something you don't see that often. And I guess it was, you know, respectful, you know, to take that seriously and not as jokey as probably if this would have came out, if this premise would have came out in the later 80s, they might have turned it into a comedy. Well, not a comedy, but a horror comedy. It would have been a more slapstick kind of slasher film. But no, because of the time it came out, this was dead serious.
Yeah.
But my favorite part of that shower kill, and I noticed it on this watch, and I never really paid attention to it before, but when he hoists her up with the pitchfork in the tub, or you can hear the fork scrape against the tile. I love that. Really good attention to detail.
I didn't hear that, but
I noticed that the first time this time.
I will say that with that kill, I mean, when those forks are pressed up into her and stuff, of course, me, critiquing the film, I'm sitting here, watching how the forks are being shoved in, and I'm seeing like the blood coming from them. Instantly I'm like, oh, they probably had like some fake bloodlines, but I mean, it looked realistic. It genuinely looked like she was getting jabbed by a pitchfork.
And I think that's what makes his effects work in this movie stand out, is the tone and the fact that they seem so real. Like, it's little touches that he did in this movie in particular with his kills. Like when the Prowler is behind the girl's boyfriend, he's getting ready to jump in the shower with her to have a good time, and he's taking off his clothes and stuff, and he pops out behind him and he takes the bayonet and sticks it right through his head.
Oh yeah.
The attention to detail with the eyes rolling back in the back of the head is amazing. So effective, man. And you see, like, because he has his hand over his mouth, you see his face kind of like bulge out, and it's just, oh man, it's just sinister looking, dude.
Yeah,
it's really, really sinister.
That's what I'm saying. That scene set the precedent of what the kills would be like in the movie, and then I feel like later they kind of failed to live up to that, because I was like, man, that was an awesome kill, and then the next couple were just kind of like, But then again, like I said, keeping it down to earth, how would a soldier kill kind of thing, that's really kind of what they stuck to. Now, would a soldier use a pitchfork? I don't know. But
back in those times, back in the World War II times, I mean, they used what they had. If it was a pitchfork laying around, they were going to use that as a weapon. I can see that.
They had at their disposal.
Yeah, because they didn't have an unlimited supply of ammunition.
Well, a lot of boys that got drafted too were, farmers, country boys, willing to take up arms for the country. By that I mean being forced to be a draft.
Daniel brought up something that I'm glad he brought up, is when he talked about the kills that happen in the latter part of the film. They really do, and I love that he pointed this out, they really feel like a soldier, like, doing these kills, because another one of the most amazing kills is when he's got the girl in the pool. That kill feels like a kill that you would see in like Nam or something, where you would, because he literally traps her. If you notice, he traps her in the pool, kicks her in the face, she flies back, she's kind of like
disoriented.
She's disoriented. He comes up behind her when she's trapped, and he grabs her and he slits her throat. And that's a very, very, like, that kill seems like something that would happen in war, to be honest with you. So I love the fact that he pointed out that, hey, it feels like, especially in the latter part of the film, a lot of these kills are taken from like something that you would see in war. It really did, because I noticed that with the effective way that he trapped her, and then he sprang up behind the teacher and got her too. Like, that seems like something you would do to be stealthy, especially when you're in Vietnam, like that's, or in World War II, very, 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 very prevalent. So
that's my all-time favorite kill of the whole film. Both of those. Yeah, both of those. That pole scene, that's probably my favorite out of the entire film, because when he comes up behind her with the knife, it's, again, I found myself kind of wondering how the hell they pulled it off, because with a knife, it should have like a small slit in it to where it'll fit just around the neck,
Yeah.
But I mean, in this case, it looked like it was literally dragging through her skin,
Well-
and it's like, man, Savini, you pulled it off. Like that looks realistic.
Which you go back to, he's done that. I mean, Savini he'll almost like he'll one up himself, because if you notice in Friday the 13th, the Annie kill, similar kill, slit throat, but it's really quick and precise. So the kill in this one, he kind of like one ups that kill, because it's not quick and precise. It's long and drawn out, and it heightens it more, to me anyway. Because when you look at, and I love the Friday the 13th franchise so much, it's my favorite franchise of all time. But especially with part 7, like the MPAA just completely butchered that film with the kills. Like, it were so quick, bloodless almost. Like they just ramped it. And with this one, it feels like they didn't even touch it. Like, they didn't even look its way. And I appreciate that as a slasher film fan, because I want to see these kills and I want to see them drag out a little bit. I don't want to see them quick and boom, done. Sometimes you're in the mood for that, but you want to see the effects and makeup work at its finest.
Sounds like practical effects artists are always getting the shaft.
They really are.
Whether their work's getting cut or if it's getting CGI'd to death, We talked about that in the Thing, the reboot of the Thing. How they brought these practical effects artists in to do all this awesome work, to pay homage to the original, and then they just CGI'd it to death. It's a shame, man, because these guys they put a lot of like thought and effort, their whole heart and soul in this, to make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah. Well, that kind of goes back to like, so I watched for one of our roulette episodes, I forget which one, but I watched a film where a guy was talking about he was like, yeah, you would probably recognize me from this film, but everything was scrapped due to CGI. I was like, wow.
Wow.
Fortunate, man. But that's the sad reality we live in.
I almost, you almost could thank Ted Bundy for that. When he was on death row, and he's like, television made me do it. Like, yeah, okay, Ted.
Well, you look back, and a lot of it comes back to when John Lennon was shot and killed. Like, that kind of affected the movie industry, where they were trying to tone down violence at that time. So they went crazy with the NPA, cracking down on these slasher films, and we got to tone down the violence. We can't have any lingering violence on screen. The audience will be affected by it. So that had a lot to do with it as well. But that's the thing I appreciate about this movie, is that they kind of linger with the kills, and I love that. I appreciate that so much. Not only are they effectively amazing, but the fact that they let you, based on it for a little bit is really remarkable.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard, people's complaints on this movie is, there's really no tension or this and that. I can't disagree more. I think there's plenty of tension. I look at the scene when Pam, our final girl, when she has her dress, like, she has punch spilled on her dress. So she comes back because she's rooming with these girls. She comes back and the killer is in the bathroom and she's in there. And that whole scene is tense because you don't know, at any point he could pop out and chase her and this and that. But no, he hangs back and he's, just hanging back. He's lingering and
taking
she's
his
there.
time.
Yeah, taking his time. So I think that's tense right there. So the fact that people say, "Oh man, there's no tension in this movie at all," I can't disagree more.
He had to he had to make it look classy. He had to place the rows and everything else. So he was taking his time. I like that. And I was on the edge of my seat. Was he going to start chasing her then and there?
Mm-hmm.
Was she going to walk in on him?
Yeah.
And she didn't. She just and then she almost kind of doubled back like she was going to, and then she didn't.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
I like the fact that she went back into the room, and I was like,
yeah. Because things could have went drastically different if she could have walked in and seen him there in the bath. Things could have completely changed. The whole, the whole narrative of the story would have changed. But no, she went back, and the rest is history, really.
Mhm.
What interests me too is how Joseph Zito went from directing this to directing a movie where a dog committed suicide.
Gordon.
Rest in peace, Gordon. Now, I was actually reading some of the trivia here on IMDb. Interesting enough for you local listeners out there, it's allegedly, it's been recently discovered that The Prowler was re-released to a handful of theaters in North and South Carolina as Pitchfork Massacre in spring 1984. It is still unknown who the distributor was or whether they legally acquired the rights to release the film.
Wow.
That's so great.
That's interesting. I bet a copy of that would go for quite a lot.
Well, I'm kind of curious if anybody that we know around here saw it back then as Pitchfork Massacre. Like, I wonder if that was a thing.
Yeah.
Cool.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be, right? It's a big world.
Somebody somebody hey, I remember a movie called Pitchfork Massacre. I saw that, in the theaters. Like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, could you imagine? Because wasn't the Big Mo was probably around about that time, wasn't it?
Probably, yeah.
So
Around a while.
if you don't know what the Big Mo is, we have a drive-in theater around here called the Big Mo, and it's been around seems like forever, and yeah, they could have potentially played that movie under that title there.
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
That's so crazy how it's North and South Carolina.
Yeah. Of all the states, One of these days I'm going to be having a conversation with my dad. I'll be like, yeah, I went to see this movie years ago called Pitchfork Massacre. That movie sucked.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, Dad, take your medicine. Like, that movie doesn't exist, Dad. It does. I seen it.
Yeah, I do have a tiny complaint with this film. I found out who the killer was almost immediately.
Yeah.
That's the only downfall to this film. They do have a couple red herrings, not many.
I noticed a lot
really
this time around. Yeah.
Well, I thought, well, maybe the dad isn't really in a wheelchair. Maybe he's the one doing the killing because he's still alive, the original girl's father.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe he's doing the killing.
Peeping Tom?
No, not the Peeping Tom. That was like a teacher at the school or whatever.
He's just...
Yeah, the guy is just staring at the girls in the window. I love that scene is amazing. He's just sitting there staring at the girls, and they know clearly he's there staring at them. So they just flash him.
Yeah.
It's great. Even the basement scene, I was like, you dirty bastard.
Because nothing combats Peeping Toms and perverts like giving them exactly what they want.
Playing into their demands.
You can't have this. You can't have this.
One day he broke out of his cage and he got that.
But then you have the shop owner and then the guy that works for the shop owner. Those two guys are red herrings. Because what I realized watching it this time is that the shop owner, I can't remember his name. I can't remember his name exactly, but he was in the flashback scene in the beginning. He was the dude that was walking his date into the dance. And I noticed that this time around. I didn't notice that before. So he was involved with what was going on back in 1945. I was like, holy shit. I didn't even realize that because I never put two and two together because they say his name a couple times in the opening. And then, of course, his name's Pat, I think. Pat, but I don't remember the name of his shop. So they had him. So he was another red herring. So I noticed quite a few this time around. I was like, holy shit, they really try to throw you off with these red herrings in this movie.
I honestly, this was one slasher that I've watched that I didn't really... I don't recall trying to figure out who it was, Usually halfway through, you're like, oh, man, I know who it is. But like this one, I was just kind of like... Maybe it was because... there were a couple scenes that, and that was kind of that's been my complaint about the movie is its pacing was sometimes a little slower than it should have been. Mm-hmm. There were a lot of filler scenes, scenes that kind of make you go, okay, let's roll this along. You know, you're kind of dragging it out. You know, but I wasn't really trying to figure out who the killer was, and not that I recall. Anyways, you know, usually I'm trying to like at least try to figure out who I think it was, or you know, some sort of motive. This was just kind of like, I don't know. I just kind of, I don't know if I lost interest in trying to figure out who it was or what, but I don't know.
Well, for me, I kind of did the math right away. I was like, okay, how convenient, first and foremost, that the sheriff is just going out of town, going on a fishing trip, you know, and then I started figuring out things, like doing the math a little bit. I'm like, okay, 1945, this kid, he was probably like 20, you know, I would say around 18, 20 years old. Now, flash forward to the 80s. Okay, he's about 60 years old now. He could still be alive. Because there for a minute, I thought, well, maybe it falls under, like, okay, could it be like, you know, one of the kids just kind of reenacting the original kill, you know, just to get a rise out of people in this small town or something? Because we've seen that before, too. So is that what's happening here? And then I was like, you know what? No, I seriously think it's the sheriff. And then, you know, lo and behold, of course, you think that you would figure out that, okay, the sheriff is in fact on this fishing trip, because the deputy or whatever calls the lodge that he's staying at, but the asshole clerk never went and checked.
Oh,
so
God.
That scene.
I hated that guy so bad. I was like,
It's hilarious,
you're a
dude.
dick. Like,
I love that scene, man.
That guy. Oh my gosh. I was like, the thing irritated me about that the most was like that scene was too realistic, because there wasn't no like funny one-lines. You know, there was so much dead air, because he's like, hey, could you go check? And the guy's like, yeah, I'll be right back. Doesn't get up. I was like,
slams the door behind him real quick.
No, I love.
Yeah, to make it sound like he got up.
Yeah, I love the fact that he was so irritated by the guy asking him to check. Like, that's not his job. Like, he was so irritated. Like, you're trying to make me do my job? I'm sitting here not doing nothing, and I'm loving it.
That dude hasn't done anything all day. He gets asked one question.
One question. It's like, fuck, doing my whole night. I was gonna sit here and do nothing all night. You fucked that up.
Here's a quote from the sheriff I found. Damn right, it's my fishing trip. And if you bother me about anything, Bill, I'll kick your ass across state line, okay?
But yeah, because they try to kind of, I think they realized that too, doing this, like, in the script. They're like, okay, this is going to be kind of like pretty obvious, like, what's going on. So they tried to retread, say, oh, the sheriff does this every year. It's his annual fishing trip. So just he's not doing this just this one time, and that would be really convenient. But no, he does it every year. So he's going to continue this his what he does. Like, he's just going to do it. He's not going to stop. No, like, psycho, killer or something like that's going to stop him from going on his fishing trip.
Yeah.
Which I kind of wondered that, like, did he flip his switch, like, prior to everything happening? Because, I mean, so obviously he has PTSD, so he killed his girlfriend and, like, basically the guy that she left him for.
Yeah.
So killed them out of kind of like romance, I guess you would say, or passion. It was a passion murder, essentially. And then years later, all of a sudden they're gonna finally do this dance that hasn't been around since that murder. And okay, you're the sheriff. Go up to people and be like, I'm shutting this down. That's all that you would have had to do. You didn't have to kill these kids.
Yeah. It's an interesting point.
He's been waiting for this to happen.
Exactly. I think that's just what was going to trigger him and set him off, was the fact that they were even going to do it. They were going to have it. I guess it felt like it disrespected, what had been prior, their honor or whatever like that would have been done prior. Like would have been disrespect or something. But yeah, you're right. He could have easily shut it down. He's a sheriff. I mean,
Yeah.
It would have been nothing for him to shut it down.
Yeah.
But
obviously, the only option was to kill everyone, Tony.
yeah, exactly. God,
Yeah.
don't you understand this? But I love it that there's the pacing. I understand it. I completely understand it. I get it. A lot of people I've shown this to, that's the one complaint is oh man, it's a slower film.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, it takes its time, especially the scenes in Major Chatham's house. That's when the film just takes like a nosedive and it slows down completely.
Yeah. Now also, even with that being said, there was a lot about the movie I enjoyed. Shower scene was great. I thought the killer was great. The final girl was pretty cool. I feel like one thing I love about slashers is when they take a group of characters and they kind of polish them out a bit to where they give you enough about each one to be able to like relate to them, either relate to them or just like find something likable or unlikable about them.
Right.
Before killing them off. I feel like this movie, some of the kills were, they were kind of like dump kills. I've seen worse though. Don't get me wrong. Like Slaughterhouse was kind of that way. Cool killer, but like some of the characters were just like they were just there to die.
Yeah.
A good example would be like maybe Friday the 13th, part 3 and 4 were good examples.
Great characters.
Part 4, that was the one with Crispin Glover, right?
Yeah.
Like the foundation they built with him and his friends, their dialogue, like I love that in a slasher film.
Me too.
And this movie, I feel like didn't quite have that. But yeah, the pacing didn't kill it. Now I feel like maybe I did judge the movie unfairly. I did give it a decent rating. I would like to go back and revisit it. I could change my mind.
Yeah.
This could be one of those movies you got to watch twice to appreciate.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
There's definitely stuff that I noticed, and I've watched this movie countless times, man, over 10 times. And there's stuff I noticed that I didn't notice before and during this watch. Like there's a lot of foreshadowing with dialogue in the beginning of the film that I never quite caught on to until I really paid attention. And, there's a scene where the girl, Sherry, the girl that gets killed in the shower, she tells her friend, she's like, don't be mopey. Like, don't be all bummed out. This is the last weekend we're going to really see each other. And she was right. Foreshadowing. Most of these people are going to die. Mm-hmm. So that is literally the last weekend they're going to see each other. And then with the store owner, he's like, we got to get this order to, I think he said to Major Chatham's house or something like that. He said he said something about if the sheriff noticed, or I think it was Mark, the deputy. He said, if I don't hold down the fort, essentially, the sheriff's going to kill me. I mean, a lot of
clever.
There's a lot of clever foreshadowing going on in the beginning that I never really paid attention to before, but like kind of analyzing it a little bit more, I was like, oh, okay, that's pretty interesting. I had to write that down in my notes, like, that's interesting and all. But the pacing for me, I understand it. I get it. I always get sucked in because of the way this film is shot. It's kind of like this dreamlike, almost like moody cinematography and atmosphere that really just draws me in. I love that kind of shit. It feels like, I always talk about it, guys. This feels like a coastal horror film, but it's not really. It doesn't, you don't really see the coastline, or you don't see, but it feels like it has that feel.
The moody, foggy,
exactly.
Yeah, I was about to say the fog.
Yeah. I love that shit. So I automatically am roped into it, and I'm digging it, and I love it. And every time I pop this movie on and watch it, I always get sucked into that atmosphere and that cinematography, the way this film is shot. This film is also shot on location. They don't use any sets in this movie. Like they shoot at Major Chatham's house. That was like a museum that the crew had to like carefully, film in. They didn't want to break anything. It's really cool that they didn't use any sets in this movie, that it was all shot on location. That's another thing I think about it. It really brings an authenticity to this movie. Makes it feel a little bit more like, is a lot of quaint feel to this, like especially with the characters and their dialogue with each other. It feels like more, like I said, quaint. They're not as roped up and amped up as some characters can be in various, slasher films, and especially around this time. But, they definitely feel like a little bit more small town, a little bit more, just boring, go with the flow, not really too engaging. And, I kind of feel that because it's just how small the town is, and just there's not a lot going on. This is the biggest thing that they got going on is this dance is happening. So, they're all.
It
I like
was immediately ruined.
There's one scene that I crack up with, which I noticed our final girl Pam. I don't know. I wasn't sure if she was in a relationship with Mark or they were like courting each other. I wasn't quite sure about that because she is like really jealous of him, like extremely jealous of him. So when he's going to the dance to go speak to her and the other girl pulls him away and starts dancing with him, she's giving him a look like, I'm going to fucking kill you. Giving him those dead eyes, man. Like just rage. And I laugh because while that's happening and she's like handing out punch to the people at the party, the one guy's over there with the liquor just like pouring it into the punch the whole time, and she's just like looking at him. She's pissed off. She's like, what the fuck am I doing? Like you can tell from her demeanor, she's just like done.
Yeah. Well,
whole situation.
I think they ultimately care for each other, and there is some sort of a spark there, whether it be a relationship or maybe a pre-relationship. I think that they're gonna end up forming.
I wasn't quite sure if they were already in a relationship or they were like courting each other. I didn't know because there's a lot of drama that's going on back and forth between them.
Well, Mark is very flirtatious, and the girl that pulls him away, you can definitely tell that she's kind of I guess like the floozy of the bunch, if you will. You can definitely tell like she was touching on other men and stuff like that, but she knew what she was doing because she could see the jealousy forming in Pam's face.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, yeah, she went straight to like restless like bitch face mode. Like you could tell instantly she was pissed. But I mean, I could see that if you've got your eyes on a guy and then all of a sudden he gets pulled away by the floozy of the bunch and just starts dancing with her, I could see that.
Well, Mark was a ladies' man, and we saw that from the beginning. When he first showed him, he'd flirt with one girl, turn around and flirt with Pam. He didn't care. If he's single, he's single, just having a good time talking to girls. And I think Pam wanted something serious with him. Maybe she felt the fireworks, and what she was receiving from him was kind of like, hey, this is going to turn into something. And then she got hella jealous whenever the floozy came in. So Lisa was her name?
Lisa, that was her name. Which was the same actress that was the the wife of the guy from Humanoids from the Deep. The same girl. And we just covered that one not too long ago. So that was pretty cool. I was like, yeah, she looks just like the girl. Oh, that is fun.
Wait a minute, which one?
The wife of the main character from Humanoids from the Deep.
The one that stabbed the one in the kitchen.
Yeah, she stabbed the hell out of the.
Yeah. So she was Pam?
Yeah, the one with the baby. No, she was Lisa.
Lisa,
the one
the
that
floozy.
killed the pool.
Oh, okay.
That was the same one, same actress. Yeah.
That's funny because she got really pissy in a scene in that film where I forget what it was, but you could definitely tell there was some jealousy happening between a husband and wife there.
Yeah.
In that movie.
I just didn't know. Like I said, man, going back to it, I don't think they really established that they were in a relationship, or they were just like, in the process of becoming a couple, or I don't know. Like he just seemed like he was just like, hey, I'm a single guy, man. There's good looking girls around. I'm just gonna flirt with all of them. I don't give a shit.
I mean, if I had hair like that, I probably would too.
It was magnificent, Maine, wasn't it?
It wasn't a magnificent hair, yeah. He did have that going for him.
Sure, man.
I like the scene in the cemetery where he was trying to get the casket open. He was having a really rough time down there.
So I wanted to bring that up. When this movie was getting released, like Zito was thinking about like pulling the release, like and burying the film essentially for two reasons. One of them was two of them were actually props. So the tombstone prop, he said it looked terribly fake. He didn't like it. He was very, very upset the way it turned out. And then the prop with the book, what was it, the picture book with Rosemary's picture in it? Apparently they just took a book and stuck her picture in it, and that was it. Like, it wasn't an actual prop. So he was thinking about burying this film just for those two reasons alone, which is insane to me.
Wow.
That really blows my mind. Like, think never could have saw this film for like have any kind of release, home media release or anything, because he was ashamed of two props. Just blows my mind, dude.
That's what you call a perfectionist.
I'm telling you. I understand where he comes from with the tombstone, because the tombstone did look fake as hell. Let's be honest.
It did. Well,
it looked like it was made of foam.
Rosemary's name was scraped off of it. They made it look like as if somebody took a bayonet and scratched out the name and then scratched out the year that she died.
Mm-hmm.
So they just had a birth date, and then I think it said like in loving memory.
Yeah.
And then there was a rose on top.
Mm-hmm. It looked fake as hell.
Yeah.
It doesn't completely like, oh, I hate this movie because the tombstone looks fake. Like, no, it's just one of those things.
Hey, I like the movie American Sniper, but that baby was fake as hell. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's already, his wife's like spilling her guts out to him, you know, and just pouring her heart out, and he's sitting there holding their baby, and it's clearly the fakest ass baby prop ever.
Well, I look at it like this. I absolutely adore Nightmare on Elm Street. I love that movie. But, you know, when Nancy's mom gets pulled through the door at the end, to think if Craven's like, oh, I hated the way that looked, I'm just going to bury this film. No one's ever going to see it. That's what it, like, that's how I look at it. Like, if he would have hated that, because that effect looked terrible, but I still love that movie to death. If he would have felt the same way, he probably would have like, no, we got to bury this film. No one can see it. That just blows my mind, dude. That really blows my mind. You know, we could have lost out on a classic because, you know, he was upset the way it looks.
Well, here's the other thing. How many classics have we missed out on because they've been pulled like that?
Oh, I'm sure. There's tons of them.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll release it under a new moniker. Pitchfork Massacre.
Yeah. I look at a movie, Michael Mann's The Keep. That's a movie that a lot of people have been clamoring for to get released, and Michael Mann will not release it. He's ashamed of that movie. He's like, I'm not, as long as I'm alive, it's never going to get released. He's trying to bury that film as much as he can. People want to see it because it's a legit horror film from him. So, you know, as like he says, as long as I'm alive, as long as I'm breathing, that movie's never going to see the light of day. It's never going to get released. It's not, I mean, some directors, they're perfectionists, and if there's something wrong with their film that they don't like, they're going to bury it, or they're going to try to bury it as best as they can.
Couldn't he just refilm it? I mean, I don't know. Like, is there something you could do to just change it?
I mean, they can go in and they can doctor it up or something, but no, he's like, I don't want it really. I'm ashamed. It's almost like it's a hit on his ego. Like, I'm ashamed of it. I don't want anyone seeing this. Like, so no one's going to see it.
It could be that. It also could be, what's the word I'm looking for? Anxiety, you know, to release a piece of art into the world and fear criticism, rather. You know what I mean? Because I mean, these are artists here, and they put their heart and souls into these, and you know, once they release it, they don't think it's like good enough.
Not up to par.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And we see that happen in everything. We've seen it happen with paintings. We've seen it happen with. Look at all the video games that get scrapped. It's like they got this great concept, and they're halfway through the project. The producers see it, and they're like, "This ain't good enough." Scrap it. They start again. They get a new team. Scrap it, and before you know it, it's like it's in limbo, and then it just gets dropped. I'm sure it's the same thing with movies. In that aspect, especially if the director has those anxieties of like, this ain't good enough. We can't do this. Well, but it's also funny. It's also funny to think we live in a world where Rawhead Rex got released and Clive Barker hates that film.
Exactly.
I think honestly, if Clive Barker would have directed it, he would have had a hand in bearing that film. But since he didn't direct it, I think that's how it got passed.
Rawhead.
Daniel, you make a fine point though, because as a director and a screenplay writer, the worst critic is yourself.
Yeah.
And all you want is success. You want that film, that piece of art, that your vision, you want it to be successful. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you don't, or you find one little thing wrong with it, I could see that. I could see them scrapping it. So yeah,
that's a good point, man. Yeah, I didn't think about
it. To be back when I was in music, I used to write songs and stuff, and like it would take me forever just to write one song, just because like I would constantly be redoing riffs. I'd be okay, that just doesn't flow well. Let's change it. That breakdown doesn't fit there. I'm gonna scrap it and use it later. This riff's cool, but it doesn't really fit the song. I'll take it out and use another song. And it's that process of just writing a 4-minute long song, would take me sometimes a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So I couldn't imagine working on a movie, and just getting halfway through and just going scrapping it, burying it. No one's gonna see it.
No one's ever gonna see it.
But at the same time, I get it. 100%. I get it, because I don't know. I've had some cool ideas for like concepts of movies or books. I'm no writer, but like I know as soon as I try to sit down and try to put it down on paper, that I'm gonna get halfway through and be like, I'm scrapping it. This isn't good enough, because my anxiety is just gonna be like, we're not doing this,
I suffer from that too, man. And I get it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I didn't, because Tony and I, we wrote the film, and we thought, or at least me, I don't know how Tony felt, but I didn't think I was going to be able to sit down and actually write dialogue between characters, stuff like that. I knew nothing about it. I didn't know what I was, but it actually was really good. Because Tony and myself, we both read it and both loved it. I've let a few other people read it and they loved it. So.
Yeah. What is it? Is it Orange County? I think it was Orange County. The comedy it's got I think Jack Black's in the movie.
Yeah. Yep. Colin Hanks is.
And John Lithgow's his dad.
Dad, yeah.
And he's like, Dad, I want to be a writer. He's like, a writer? What do you want to be a writer for? You're not oppressed. You're not gay. I always think of that every time I want to like sit down and write something. That line always pops on my head, and I'm like, John Lithgow, man, he's the man.
He is great.
Some movies, there's movie lines in every movie that'll stick with you, and I don't know why that one always stuck with me. I always thought it was funny.
Well, speaking of, I'm glad you brought that up, Daniel. Speaking of music, what did you think about the band that was playing at the party? How cheesy was that shit?
Yeah, the band was great. I feel like I feel like the hype man was greater, because he was really hyping this band up, man. He was excited to be there. But yeah, it was I don't know. It felt. It's funny because I was watching this movie thinking it takes place in the 80s, and apparently it doesn't. And so that's what was throwing me off, I really need to go back and rewatch this movie because there's so much I missed. I don't know why I missed so much, but the music just didn't seem to fit, and I was like, that's kind of weird music to have for an '80s party, and it's not in the '80s. It's like, in the '40s. So
Yeah, well, it was in the beginning, and then they jumped forward, and the band that was playing when they opened up the party again, where they're like, oh, let's do the celebration again. That band, that 80s cheese band.
okay.
It's in so many. I was just talking to Corey pregame about it. I was like, you get this in so many 80s slasher films. It's crazy. Like this cheesy ass band that plays, but their song is so catchy and it hooks into you. And then you're like, it's playing in your head all the time. You're like, fuck, I just want the song out of my head, but I can't help it. It just gets stuck in there. And you're like, I'm hooked. I love it.
Well, no band will ever be greater than Tina and the Tots on Doom Asylum.
Tina and the Tots. That's a great name.
I stand by that.
Yeah, well, I mean, when we go down this rabbit hole and we watch a lot more, you'll see these bands, especially these slashers that take place in like a college, like the college campus or something like that, and they have like an end of the year party or something like that. They always book these amazingly cheesy 80s bands to play at these parties, and the songs are hysterical, bro. That's so funny. They're so damn cheesy, dude. That's the best word to describe it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that song was like stuck in my head after I watched the movie. I was still jamming to it.
Well, I enjoyed the all the music throughout the entire film, and then of course all the sounds and stuff. It really they're really interesting sounds and stuff like that. And what I mean by that is I don't really want to go to the ending yet, but the ending, the subtle music in the ending just really threw me off. Like it's so different because it was so subtle. Like everything's peaceful, everything's normal again, and then no. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what do you think about when they go back to what's his name's house?
Major Chatham.
Yeah, Major Chatham's house. Which, by the way, where the fuck did he go? He just rolled off into the distance.
He couldn't go far in a wheelchair.
No. No.
Just he did. He just disappeared.
I mean, obviously the killer must have got to him.
He said, "Autobots, roll out."
Roll out. Yeah. I was wondering that too. I was like, where the hell did he go? He just fucking disappeared.
I wonder if maybe they showed that and that was a cut scene. I'm kind of curious as if that was a cut scene,
Could have been, yeah. They could have been.
But yeah, so when they go back, obviously there's this long, reveal of where the killer is in the house and stuff like that. Of course, instantly you're always saying, go to that room, Mark, go to that room. And he just bypasses that room every time. Like, the killer is in that room. Like, he has to be in that room. You keep bypassing it every time.
Every time.
Yeah. But
yeah, you can tell he was a rookie by all sense. Like he wasn't as well trained, and like he was. I kind of got that sense. Like he was kind of in over his head. Like with a lot of stuff, like even Pam kind of like takes jabs at him, like, "Oh, maybe we should just call the sheriff. You're just not, you're not going to be capable of handling the situation." And he's kind of like pissed off, like, "Really?"
Yeah, because at one point he gets out and he's just like, "I'm tired of dragging you around." I did not understand any of that. Like you're not dragging her around. You're protecting her.
Exactly.
I'm tired of dragging you around. Get up there.
Sick of all these whamming.
Yeah, and then he was like, and that's when she like took the jab at him, and she's like, "Oh yeah, well you go riding off playing sheriff."
Yeah. Yeah. So I can kind of tell he was like kind of in over his head with the whole situation. Yeah. Like there was a moment that like when Paul, one of the kids at the party, got drunk and he was kind of being like an asshole. And they were trying to throw him out. and he was like, he had him in and the guy's like, oh, do we need to call the sheriff? He can handle this responsibility. He needs to be locked up. He's being obscene and this and that. He's causing a scene and whatnot. So there was a lot of times where, and even the shop owner kind of gave him a little bit of hell when he came back on him. So there was multiple times in this film where he was getting like shit on by people, like not doing a good job.
The one person that did believe in him was the sheriff, because he was like, "Yeah, I'm leaving the town in good hands."
Yeah, you're in good hands. Yeah. But we obviously know he didn't give a fuck. He had another agenda. Like,
he never left town.
Ulterior motives.
Yep. I noticed that, dude. I was like, well, Mark's he's not the most capable deputy. Let's just say that.
Which I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious your thoughts, both of your thoughts really on this. So at one point, the sheriff grabs Mark, pulls him into the infamous room that Mark just keeps not going to, and then all you see is like he's knocked Mark out. Pitchfork is about to happen, and then it cuts. Yeah, it's like, so why didn't he just take Mark out?
He didn't
Obviously,
kill him.
Mark is the threat here, because Mark can stop him.
Yeah, he's got a gun. I mean, he could easily stop.
Well, that and Mark is also piecing it together.
Yeah, he's starting to, figure out what's going on. He's starting to get the scheme of things, and
remember, it is the sheriff behind the mask. Seeing Mark there, maybe he genuinely has a like for Mark. Maybe maybe in the moment he's like, I shouldn't do this. I like Mark.
Yeah.
These other people, fuck them, but Mark, he's cool.
Yeah.
Fuck you,
like,
fuck you, fuck you. You're cool.
I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, see, that kind of
another movie line that just sticks with you.
That kind of brings me back, because I think one of the biggest missed opportunities in this film is higher body count. Because you get the couple that goes into the basement. He could have taken them out. And then Paul, who gets like thrown into the jail cell, he could have took him out too, because he's got keys to that jail cell. Come on, like he could have got in there and took him out. So there's like 2 or 3 kills that could have happened that didn't happen, because you got to think body count in the present time was not that high, because the double homicide took place like 30 years prior. So he didn't really have that high of a body count in present time. Like it wasn't that high. I think it was like maybe 4. Maybe 4. Yeah, I think so. Because he takes out
4 or 5.
Yeah. Because he takes out
the two in the shower.
Yeah, it was 5.
2 in the shower, the 2 at the pool.
And then Otto, he shot him. The shop dude. Yeah, he shot him and killed him too. So that's 5. Okay. So the body count could have been a little higher. But I always think that's a nitpick on my part, because I always want a higher body count in movies. So maybe that's just my wishful thinking or whatever. But it would have been cool to see more, him to have a higher body count or a little bit more effects, just because I loved him so much, and I'm just being a little bit, being a little bit selfish. I wanted more special effects.
But you wanted more scenes like the shower scene. I get that.
Yeah,
that was my biggest thing, and I know I'm hung up on that, but go ahead, Gordon.
Well, that's why I kind of curtailed it or backed off on that, because it's not really a critique. It's just something I would have loved to have seen, but it doesn't hinder the for me.
No, but with that being said, though, it does work for this film, because it is a subtle and kind of more classier film.
It is, yeah. You definitely get that feel.
That's why I think they went with the low body count on this one.
Yeah. It's not as gratuitous as not
plus detail.
Yeah.
If we had more body count, it would be less detail on the murders in general.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I even thought like maybe some some off-screen kills or something, like just to pad the numbers a little bit more. Like you could have cut back to Paul dead in the cell, but maybe that could have kind of threw them off, or that would have. That
would have steered the audience into obviously somebody.
Exactly. Yeah, couldn't have done that. But the two in the basement could have easily been picked off. Because they were away from everybody, they were isolated. Like,
And again,
Could
I'm wondering if they didn't change the script after that one, because they could have easily, but there was also that creepy guy that
Yeah.
he was kind of watching them down there in the basement. So, that could have easily thrown a red herring in. Oh, now
It
they're
could've-
dead. So
I was just thinking it could have been like Friday Part 5, when you know what I'm talking about. The same kind of situation, the same kind of thing
Mhm.
happened.
Mhm.
Which I would like to get into, because there's a scene in this movie that's directly or the exact same scene as Part 2.
which one is
Exact-
that?
The scene where Pam's hiding and the killer's searching the room for her. That
Oh
is
yeah,
the thing that happened in Friday the 13th Part 2.
yep. Or she was hiding
Exact-
under the bed. Yeah.
The only difference is that there was no piss. That was the only difference.
Yeah. I like that scene as well. That was another very intense scene. 'Cause
Yeah.
in that moment, I really
It's-
like how she was just bouncing from room to room too. That was
Yeah,
cool.
It was a pretty decent final chase. It wasn't the best, but it was
The
pretty
chases
decent.
in this movie were pretty cool. I really enjoyed the first one. When she first encounters the killer and she's running through the hallways, and he's got like that long stride. He's not so much running after her as he has got that like long stride. He's walking towards her. I always dig that, man. That's always like the creepiest kind of pursuit you can have, when it comes to a killer. Because I mean, and that was kind of one of my gripes when like watching the Friday movies. Was, I guess, specifically 4. Is like he would run after his victims, which was terrifying in its own right. But some of the times when he's running, he looks kind of goofy.
But yeah,
Like, I'm gonna get you.
Ted White was like late 50s when he did that. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. If they had just had him like just walk, like this tall, long strided walk, I think it would have been a little bit more effective. But
Which
I think,
blows my mind because of how much Ted White got into character with Jason.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My favorite Jason, like hands down, like my favorite Jason. No disrespect to Kane. Kane's great, but Ted White's always gonna be my favorite.
Yeah, he's top 2 for me.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, what are you guys' thoughts on the end scene? Well, not, I guess it wasn't the end scene, but the end to the killer.
His demise.
Yes, his
Say
demise,
she
yeah.
helped him get ahead in life.
Oh man, that's another one. When you think about some of the best head explosions in cinema history, like in horror history, that's up there too, man. That head explosion is nasty.
I didn't even see it. I didn't see it coming at all.
So good, dude.
Because like you see, the killer gets unmasked, and then it's almost immediately. She's like, "Oh, the sheriff."
And
Well, what
other for a while, and for a minute, and then as soon as she gets the gun up under his chin, boom, like without hesitation.
Did it not to you guys, did it not look like he was genuinely trying to pull the gun towards his face?
Mhm.
To me, it looked like he was grabbing the gun and actually forcing it underneath his chin.
Really?
The old seppuku.
Mhm.
That's
Like
interesting.
he was, but it was almost like he couldn't pull the trigger himself, so he was going to make her do it. But to me, it looked like he was legitimately just trying to blast away himself.
Wow, that's an
Mhm.
interesting point.
Well, it worked.
Yeah, it did.
Because there's a struggle, and it's almost like it's intentional. All of it there is intentional. So I mean, he kills what's his name, Otto,
Yeah.
instantly, which you don't see that coming, because I mean, you see him moving around a little bit, and he's going to come back for one final jump scare. Who says that best?
Randy. This is the part where the killer comes back for one final scare.
One
Son
final
of a
scare.
bitch.
Right. So he's
Not mine. Fucking love that, dude.
But yeah, so obviously he's coming back, as you can see him kind of scrumbling around behind her, And it's almost like a subtle moment. It's so weird because Otto's like just standing there, like just there's like a moment where they're just like staring into each other's souls or something.
I never got that. They're just like
Yeah.
staring at each other for the longest time. Like,
And he had like this creepy smirk on his face, like, I just saved you.
yeah. It's almost
We're
like,
gonna do it.
yeah, it's almost like a bang now.
Yeah, what is this? And then out of nowhere, just shotgun, he's down. And then, yeah, and then they struggle. At the time, he was still wearing the mask, right?
Yeah, he was
'Cause
still wearing.
At this point, he was like getting kind of, you could tell he was having breathing issues, so he pulled the mask off, which I
Yeah.
love the mask. It's just like a bag just over his face. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, yeah, there's a struggle with that sawed-off shotgun, and seems like he just grabs it and like it almost looks like it's like he's pointing it up underneath his chin.
Yeah. Well, maybe
In my opinion, that's what it looks
I
like.
think about it. Maybe it was like guilt had set in or something like that, because there's a moment when he sees Pam and he offers her the rose and he's like, I'm here for our date, Rose. So he flashes back to his, to his sweetheart who he murdered. And maybe that's just a point where he's just like, maybe the guilt has finally got to him, along with the PTSD. Like that kind of bad concoction kind of fucked and warped his mind. And maybe.
Or Pam is just a really big Courtney Love fan.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Sorry.
It had to be said. No, I think about that, man, because he did. There's a moment when he talks to her and he's like offering her the rose and like, I'm here for our date. So in his mind, flashed back to picking her up for a date or something. Like he's cracked.
Yeah, he's good done.
Because eventually, like leading up to the end, that's what happens to Pam, unless my understanding of what happens to Pam. Because when she goes back and sees Carl's body hanging in the shower, and he lunges at her, that's all in her. In my opinion, that's all in her mind. Because when she goes back, he's obviously dead.
There's no coming back from a knife in the skull.
So to me, that's her psychologically cracking. She's broken down. Kind of like Sally in fucking Texas Chainsaw. By the end of that, he's completely fucking wrecked.
Yeah, just laughing hysterically.
For her.
Yeah.
So I know that they shot that scene, the ending, the jump, because of Carrie. They shot that directly because of what happened in Carrie. So they were kind of ripping off the Carrie ending. But to me, it proves more to her psychologically being just completely wrecked. It effectively, they did what they wanted to do with the ripping off the Carrie ending, but to me, it adds more substance to that ending. Probably wasn't their initial thought, but it played off pretty well that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I could definitely
shit going on in here too, man.
And that's the ending I was talking about. The subtle music that was happening as she was finding her two friends in there.
Yeah.
I thought that was really neat.
It kind of lulls you into a sense of like just relaxing. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, bam. So it's really effective.
Yeah.
Because the score is really kind of classy. It's not really, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's really like chill and tranquil almost, and it's interesting for a movie like this to kind of have a score like that. Because we didn't really talk too much about the score, but it's that's interesting. It's a lot more subdued.
And that's what I mean. That like it goes back to everything I said about this film. It's just very classy film.
Yeah, it does feel more classy. Yeah. Like I said, even though the nudity is not really gratuitous, I mean, you get to see Sherry in the shower, but that's only because the kill happens in the shower. So,
and it's really kind of fast. You don't, they don't hone in on her breast or anything like that. It's just quick and over with.
Yeah, it was around the time I lost interest. Just kidding.
Yeah, so yeah, she was a very attractive lady. So even with the short hair, she was, but yeah, dude, it even with Lisa, like when she kind of flashed you didn't see it.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
It's a lot more subdued and kind of classy. So yeah,
Yeah.
Zito was definitely shooting a more classy slasher film. They're trying to. But yeah, when he would go on to Friday Part 4, it was complete opposite of that.
Complete opposite.
A lot of gratuitous stuff going on in that one, which is why I love it.
I'm just surprised PETA wasn't called. Gordon. I was not expecting that.
No, I don't think anybody was.
And you're like, hey, there's a scene coming up that's like so polarizing and controversial amongst fans. I was like, okay. And then this dog dives out the window. I'm like, wait, what?
But to this day, people like, did Gordon do it or did Jason kill him? Like scare him into jumping out the window and committing dog suicide.
His demise.
It's fucking ridiculous. It really is.
My dog thinks twice about getting in the bathtub. I don't think Gordon just took a nosedive out a window.
I'm out.
Oh, hell no.
Hell no.
So, moving on to our reviews, our ratings, rather. I guess I'll go ahead and kick it off. I did give this movie a 3-star. I do need to go back and rewatch it. I feel like there's some things I may be missing. Talking about the movie, I think I enjoyed it more than I let on originally, which is weird. Because some movies are you have to watch twice. I mean, that's just how it is sometimes. You have to watch twice to really appreciate. I've had a couple of movies like that where the first time it's just either you're bored or you just you don't quite get it, but then you go back and watch it the second time, and then before you know it, you're watching it for your 20th time. So I feel like this movie could be one of those movies. I love the premise. I thought the killer was great, but I feel like the movie did suffer in certain scenes for its pacing, and it's kind of like filler pacing, where it's like just kind of slow, drawn out, and kind of like ready for it to keep, ready for it to. We're already like balls deep in Act 2, starting Act 3. I'm ready for this train to get going, but it kind of slows down. And I thought the killer was cool. I'd like to see more of that. Ex-soldier or quote-unquote ghost of soldier comes back from the dead to kill. I thought that was really cool. Great practical effects. Obviously, Tom Savini's a legend. I did like the kind of like mysterious whodunit element. I feel like it might have been a little forced, but it's always fun in slashers when you don't know who the killer is to kind of figure out who's who, that kind of thing. I think some of the characters could have been a little bit more polished, a little better. I think the final girl was fine. I think Pam was a pretty cool final girl. So I think the pros far outweigh the cons in this one. So I think it's definitely worth a watch. I did give it a 3, but I'm sure you guys gave it higher. So I just gave it a 3-star for now. Pending, it could go up.
Tony?
I like I said, to piggyback off of what Daniel said, this movie to me, I've watched it a long time ago, and to his point too, rewatchability is key. Sometimes you're not in the right mindset to watch a movie, and you're not in the right mood, right mindset, whatever. It affects you more than you know when you watch a film, because there's been plenty of times where I sat down and watched something and I wasn't really feeling it. I turned it off, and then that second time I popped it in and watched it in a better mood or in the right headspace, I enjoyed it thoroughly. So that's why I always champion rewatches. Second, going back and checking out a film that that's why when I watch a movie for the first time and I didn't really dig it, I keep it. I don't discard it, whatever. I keep it so I can go back to it and say, hey, maybe I'll like it this time, sitting down watching it. So With this film, you hit the beats. You know, you have a cool looking killer. You have your nudity. You know, you have your awesome, amazing kills. You know, Tom Savini saying this is some of his best effects work that he's ever done. I like to think he's pretty spot on with that. With this and Day of the Dead, I think are his best effects movies that he's done. And that's saying a lot because he knocks it out of the park with every movie.
God, Day of the Dead.
Yeah, Day of the Dead is probably
his magnum opus.
So, I know personally he thinks Prowler's his best. It's right up there with Day of the Dead for me. But the kills are great.
Friday 4 had great effects too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Fantastic. Fantastic. I love that they went this route with the killer with a war vet with PTSD. I really dig that. I love that they did that because not too many films at this time, or even since, have done that. Have kind of went down that path. So that's really neat. I do agree with the characters not being as polished and not being as memorable as a lot of, especially the slasher films that came out in '81. Man, they have some amazing characters. Yeah. So these are kind of like mid-tier as far as like memorable characters go. There was some funny little moments and funny little dialogue scenes that happened, and it was serviceable. Let's just say that it was serviceable. But there could have been a couple more kills. That's just I'm not using that as a knock, but
yeah,
two in particular that would have been easy, especially like after effect or like an off-screen kill. You just go back to the aftermath or whatever. That could have been done. I understand the pacing problems. I'm not going to say that every time I watch it I'm completely invested, because I'm not. There's sometimes where I'm like, okay, I understand, especially when they're walking around the Chatham house, and there's a lot of scenes that could have been tightened up a little bit more. So that is unfortunately a knock on it. But for me, I give this movie a 4-star. I definitely recommend it. I definitely recommend it, especially if you want to see some amazing kills in a slasher film. This would be the film that you pop on and watch, because the kills are fantastic.
Also worth mentioning, we are basing our ratings on the 5-star rating in letterbox.com, which you can go there and check out our reviews. So, yeah, it's a 4 out of 5, not a 4 out of 10. So,
yeah.
Well, for me, to be honest with you, I was gonna actually, I guess I'll start off with, I was gonna give it a 4.5. What killed that half for me though, however, was the fact that I learned who the killer was almost immediately. I kind of, when I sit down to watch especially a slasher film, not all slasher films is going to keep you on edge to who the killer is. Sometimes you get to know the killer right away. But in this particular film, I would have liked guessing for a little while, to kind of have me interact with the film as well. But I love pretty much almost everything about this film. Characters were great. I love especially the kind of cliche like 80s characters that you get in this film. They all have a great I guess you would say bond. They bond well with each other. You got your jokes or your funny one, and you got your more serious tone ones, kind of your goody two shoe ones, stuff like that, which is obviously Pam, your final girl. So all these characters, they mesh well, and not just the kids either. Like some of the adults, the teachers and stuff, they all mesh well too. The one female teacher, she was really fun to watch, especially when she got up on the stage, and I kind of had a laughing moment with that, with the microphone collapse, and she's like, "Shit."
Yeah.
I was laughing about that.
I did too.
But overall, like you said, Tony, the atmosphere is great. The pacing, in my opinion, the pacing is good. It is a bit slow in the house scene, or both house scenes really. It's kind of slow. But other than that, the whole chase and trying to figure out, well, follow Pam and Mark on trying to figure out who this killer is really fun. I like the fact that they start investigating, even though they don't know that there's any murders right away. You know, I did like that. So overall, 4 stars for me. That's just the best right there, in my opinion, for this film.
Yeah.
And if like I said, this film, it does it for me. So,
Yeah.
and the rewatchability is always going to be there for this one.
Yeah, like I said, I watch it quite often, and yeah, I will admit sometimes it's like depending on what mood I'm in, it's like okay, the scenes could be sped up a little bit, but then there's sometimes I get straight into it with the mood, and the atmosphere works so well in this film. It sticks with you. The dreamlike, almost just moody kind of coastal kind of vibe that it has, it definitely does have it, and just sometimes I'm not in the right headspace for it, and then sometimes I'm like, yep, I'm on board. I know what's going to happen already, but I'm still on board. I'm with you. So, like I said, the biggest things it's got going for it is that great atmosphere and the amazing kills and the cool killer with the cool backstory and the, you know, all that works really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a shame that, and I really think it's a shame that Joseph Zito didn't direct more horror. Like, as soon as he was done with Friday the 13th, he went straight into doing action films. And then that became like his thing. So it really is a shame. I think we could have got a little bit more, especially after Friday, because I think this was like a stepping stone into that boom. That's a perfect slasher film. This is a really good slasher film. That's a perfect slasher film. So I think if he would have kept going, he would have, I don't know, man, he could have been one of those, would have been those masters of horror. He could have been one of those guys. I really do believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why? I mean, who would give up the opportunity to direct Missing in Action, starring Chuck Norris?
Norris, yeah. And then he
Delta
did
Force One, starring this motherfucker and that motherfucker.
Well, he did Red Scorpion too with Dolph Lundgren. So,
okay.
yeah, he went straight into being an action director.
Okay, cool.
Which is a sad thing. You do see that times, like, you know, Peter Jackson, you know, and then
he probably didn't want to get typecast, which he ended up getting typecast in another genre. So,
mm-hmm.
you know, I guess it all depends.
Well, even like Bob Clark, you know.
Yeah, Bob Clark, same way. Yeah. He could have been
Christmas, phenomenal.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece, dude. Like,
mm-hmm.
Absolutely, but. Like I said, but I think about it and it's like, well, if he would have stuck on the horror genre, we would have never got like a Christmas Story or Porky's, or, you know, that would have never happened. So you kind of
bit of a jack of all trades.
Yeah,
I think it shows his talent too. You know, like if you can just find ways to direct anything, like you're just a good director.
Mm-hmm.
Hands down.
Absolutely, I agree.
But. So yeah, that was our review of 1981, The Prowler. If you, for some reason, watched this whole review and decided that you want one of the movies spoiled, you can still go watch it. It's on Tubi. It's free. It's a good time, so go check that out. Anything else to add, gentlemen, before we land this plane?
No, I don't have anything.
Awesome. So yeah, once again, this has been the Midnight Monster Corner podcast. You guys rock. We appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Follow us on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you can listen to podcasts. We are there. Join our Facebook group. Follow us on Twitter. All that jazz. And we continue Summer Slasher series with a movie we will be announcing soon, because I don't think we even know.
Well, but I think we talked about Billy Club, didn't we?
Yeah.
God, you spoiled it, Corey.
Oh, sorry.
He's just so excited.
All right, scrap it. We're scrapping this episode. We're burying it. That being said, we are out of here. We'll see you guys next week.
Later, guys.
Later.